The doors were supposed to stay locked. That was the rule. But on that night, deep inside Berlin Tegel Prison, one door opened when it should not have. Cameras did not record it. Alarms did not sound. Guards did not respond in time. And when the morning count was done, one thing was clear. The prison had lost control. A man lay injured in his cell. Another inmate was missing. And a locked wing showed signs that someone had been inside without permission. Officials would later call it a security failure. Inmates would call it something else. They would say the gangs had taken over. And as officers rushed through the halls, asking questions no one answered, one question hung in the air like smoke. If this could happen once, what else had already happened without anyone noticing? Long before that night, Berlin Tegel Prison already had problems. On paper, it was a high-security prison in Berlin, Germany. It held inmates from the city itself, and others sent in from places like Hamburg and Frankfurt. The rules were clear. The walls were high. The systems were modern. But paper does not tell the whole truth. Inside the prison, daily life moved slowly. Very slowly. Inmates woke up to metal doors opening and closing. They stood for count. They ate simple food. They worked small jobs. They waited for the day to end. This was the low part of prison life. Quiet. Boring. Heavy. But under that calm surface, something else was growing. Groups began to form. Not loud groups. Not violent ones at first. Just small circles of men who sat together. Walked together. Shared food and favors. They did not call themselves gangs. But everyone knew they were. A man named Mike noticed it early. Mike was from New York. He had been moved to Tegel after a case that went bad while he was living overseas. He kept his head down. He followed the rules. But he watched everything. He saw how some inmates never waited in line. How others avoided eye contact with certain men. How some guards seemed nervous around specific cells. One day, Mike asked another inmate, Alex, about it. Alex laughed softly. This place, Alex said, runs on power, not rules. That was a low moment. A warning. Weeks passed. Then came the first high moment. A fight broke out in the workshop. It happened fast. One shout. One push. Then chaos. Tools hit the floor. Men ran. Guards rushed in too late. 2 inmates were hurt. One guard was shaken badly. The official report said it was a simple argument. But inmates knew better. The fight was planned. After that, something changed. Certain inmates were moved. Others took their places. And the same group stayed strong, like nothing had happened. The gangs were testing limits. Then came the assaults. Not loud ones. Quiet ones. A shove in a hallway. A punch where no camera could see. A man returning to his cell with bruises and no story. The report said inmate conflict. The truth was deeper. Mike noticed that the same names kept appearing. The same faces never did. Those faces belonged to the ones in control. Guards tried to respond. They added more checks. More counts. More rules. But rules only work when people believe in them. Some guards started looking tired. Others stopped asking questions. One guard, Officer James, still talked. This place is stretched thin, he told Mike once. Too many people. Too many problems. That was another low moment. Then came another high. A full wing went into lockdown without warning. No fight. No alarm. No explanation. Doors shut. Lights stayed on all night. Inmates whispered through vents and walls. They are hiding something. No, they lost something. The lockdown ended after a day. No statement was made. But something strange happened. A camera near one stairwell stopped working. It stayed broken. Mike noticed guards walking faster past that area. No one stood there anymore. Then came the transfers. New inmates arrived from other German cities. They brought stories. They brought connections. They brought old problems with them. The balance inside Tegel shifted. Gangs grew bolder. They controlled phone access. They controlled food trades. They controlled protection. If you paid, you were safe. If you didn't, you learned fast. This was the slow rise. The quiet rise. Then came the night everything broke. It started with a simple routine. Evening count. Lights dimmed. Doors locked. At least, that's what was supposed to happen. Mike heard footsteps after lights out. That was not normal. Then he heard a door open. Not his. Not a guard door. An inmate door. No alarm followed. Mike sat up in bed, heart pounding. Voices moved down the hall. Calm voices. Confident ones. Then silence. Minutes passed. Then shouting. Then boots running. Lights flashed on. Guards flooded the wing. Orders were shouted. Radios crackled. Mike saw one inmate being taken out on a stretcher. Alive, but badly hurt. Another cell stood open. Empty. The next morning, the count did not match. One inmate was missing. No escape alarms had triggered. No cameras showed anything useful. No clear answers came. Officials said the investigation was ongoing. Inmates whispered a different story. They said the gangs had walked freely that night. They said the systems failed on purpose. They said someone inside helped. And as Mike sat on his bunk, listening to guards argue in the hallway, he realized something terrifying. This was not just about one night. This was about a prison that had been slowly losing control for a long time. And now, the cracks were wide open. Because if doors could open without alarms, then nothing inside Berlin Tegel Prison was truly locked anymore. The prison did not feel the same after that night. It felt watched. Guards walked faster. Radios stayed on all the time. Doors slammed harder than before. Even the air felt heavy, like something bad was still hanging around. The missing inmate was never named out loud. On paper, officials said there was a counting error. Then they changed it to an ongoing investigation. Then they stopped talking about it at all. Inside the prison, nobody believed those words. Inmates believed what they saw. And what they saw was fear. Mike noticed it first in the way guards acted. Some avoided certain hallways. Others stayed in groups, never alone. A few stopped talking to inmates completely. Officer James still spoke, but even he sounded different now. "Keep your distance," he told Mike one morning. "Things are tense." That was a low moment. Quiet. Controlled. But uneasy. The gangs noticed the fear too. They did not rush. They waited. Power likes patience. A week passed without any big trouble. No fights. No lockdowns. Just silence. That silence was dangerous. In the yard, men stood closer together now. Groups grew larger. Nobody sat alone unless they wanted trouble. Mike stayed near the wall, watching. He saw how certain inmates nodded to guards and got favors. Extra phone time. Better work spots. Small things that mattered a lot inside prison. He also saw who got nothing. One man named David stopped showing up to meals. When he came back, his face was swollen. His eyes looked empty. "What happened?" Mike asked quietly. David shook his head. "Wrong people," he said. "Wrong place." Another low moment. Then came the reports. Guards searched cells more often. They found phones. Notes. Tools that should not have been there. But they never found the leaders. Only followers. Official reports later said gang influence was suspected. Inside, it was already known. The gangs were not hiding anymore. They were managing the prison. They decided who worked where. Who was protected. Who was punished. And most of the time, they did it without violence. That was the scariest part. Then came the next high. It happened during breakfast. An argument started near the food line. Loud voices. Angry words. A guard stepped in. That was a mistake. The argument turned fast. Trays fell. Men rushed forward. Someone pushed the guard hard. Alarm screamed. The dining hall exploded into chaos. Mike backed away, heart racing. He saw fists swing. Chairs tip over. Guards shout orders that no one followed. It ended with several inmates on the ground and one guard injured. This time, the lockdown came immediately. All wings. No movement. Lights stayed on all night again. This lockdown lasted longer. 3 days. During that time, strange things happened. Some doors opened when they shouldn't. Some lights flickered. Some cameras went offline for hours. No one explained why. Inmates whispered through walls. "They're testing the system." No, the system is already broken. Mike started to understand something important. The gangs were not just using strength. They were using knowledge. They knew schedules. They knew blind spots. They knew which systems failed first. Someone had taught them. Or helped them. When the lockdown ended, life returned to normal. But normal no longer meant safe. Mike was moved to a different work detail. So was Alex. So were several others. The leaders stayed where they were. That told Mike everything. One afternoon, Officer James stopped near Mike's cell. "You hear anything strange?" he asked. Mike thought carefully. then shook his head. James sighed. That's the problem, he said. Nobody hears anything anymore. Another low moment. Then came the night of the second failure. It was quiet. Too quiet. No shouting. No tapping. No laughter. Mike lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. At exactly 1:40 a.m., the power dipped. Not off. Just weak. At 1:45 a.m., a door clicked. At 1:50 a.m., a camera light went dark. Mike sat up. He heard soft footsteps. Slow. Confident. Then a voice whispered from the hallway. Now. Metal moved. A door opened. And this time, Mike knew for sure. This was not an accident. This was control. Moments later, alarms finally screamed to life. Late, confused, useless. Guards ran. Orders echoed. Lights flashed back on. But the damage was already done. Another inmate lay injured. Another security zone showed signs of entry. And another serious failure was added to the official reports. As Mike pressed his back against the cold wall of his cell, listening to chaos fill the prison again, one terrifying thought settled in his mind. The gangs were no longer testing Berlin Tegel Prison. They were running it. And the worst part was still coming.